want to thank the Minister for Health and Social Care for his statement. I am sure that I speak for the whole court and indeed this island nation when I say to him and the dedicated doctors, nurses, care workers and community care workers on the front line of this health crisis that our thoughts are with them and their families as they apply the full range of their abilities and capabilities to keep us safe in the coming days, weeks and months. I want to make it absolutely clear that whatever funding they need to face this challenge, they will get. But there is a growing second front arising as a direct result of this global pandemic, and it is an economic and fiscal battle to sustain our economy and jobs throughout the next vital 3 months and possibly beyond. I recognise that there has already been an economic impact that has, at this stage, most acutely been felt in the tourism, leisure and travel sectors. I also recognise that all businesses are working incredibly hard to ensure that their businesses and our economy continue to function and services continue to be provided. We must act together to keep business working and staff in employment. I give a commitment that the government will take steps to help protect, as much as we can, the island's economy and our businesses to overcome the short-term impacts of COVID-19. Today, I can announce, subject to Tynwald approval, immediate measures to assist with business cash flow. Mr. President, one of the most significant costs businesses have is their staff, and therefore I have brought an order to this court today that will provide a 3-month holiday for employers' national insurance contributions in the following sectors: tourist accommodation, catering, entertainment and leisure, travel and tour operators and logistics to and from the island. The effects of this measure is to reduce to nil the rate of Class 1 secondary national insurance contributions. The full details of these sectors will be provided in a list that will be published in the next few days and laid before Tynwald in the coming weeks. The list will be kept under constant review, and I will keep it under constant review and seek to broaden its scope as required. The full cost of this measure is difficult to quantify, but as it stands at the moment, we expect it to be in the region of £250,000 a month. This measure will come into operation for the month 12 payment, March payment, that is due to be paid to the Treasury by the 19th of April. Should any employer that is covered by this measure have already paid month 12 to the Treasury, then they will be able to apply for a refund of the employer national insurance contributions that they have paid. In addition to this, a grant of £3,000 for all businesses in the sectors specified earlier will be available to provide an immediate cash boost. Details of the application process will be made available on the Department for Enterprise's website very shortly, and we will be making payments as soon as we are able to thereafter. I recognise that more substantial support will be required for accommodation providers. In conjunction with the Department for Enterprise and the industry, I am working on a scheme that will provide much needed support to those affected businesses. In addition, if any business is having difficulty in meeting their statutory obligations, such as the payment deadlines for tax, national insurance or VAT, or for the submissions of returns, they should contact the relevant division as soon as possible. Both the Assessor of Income Tax and the Collector of Customs and Excise will work with businesses and individuals on a case-by-case basis to minimise the pressures that they may currently be experiencing. Also, if individuals or businesses are experiencing difficulties in relation to any payments to other government departments, I would encourage them to contact that department where matters will be considered sympathetically. In line with the response outlined by the Health Minister earlier today, it is absolutely vital that individuals self-isolate if they display symptoms of COVID-19. I do recognise that this will have a short-term impact on a business's ability to operate and their cash flow. To assist all businesses in all sectors who are providing discretionary sick pay to employees self-isolating, I will provide compensation to the employer of £20 per working day in a consecutive period of up to 2 weeks per employee in self-isolation. Those in self-employment are also able to access the full range of benefits for the duration of this crisis. These measures will assist business in the short term. However, it is not just government that is able to assist in these tough times. Our banks have announced they are also providing assistance to businesses with loan repayment holidays and working capital assistance. I know that businesses across the island are working hard to react to the changes brought about by the virus, and the banking industry is stood ready to help. I would encourage everyone to engage with their banks as a matter of urgency if they are feeling they are in financial trouble. As far as individuals are concerned, I know this will be a deeply troubling time for them and their families. Until recently, individuals who cannot work due to sickness or incapacity can only claim incapacity benefit from the 4th day of sickness. I can inform you I have already signed an order which will remove with immediate effect and for a period of 26 weeks the 3-day waiting period for awards of short-term incapacity benefit. This will ensure that those who take the recommended action to protect others by self-isolating are financially supported from day one. A further order is being brought forward to allow a person to self-certify their incapacity for work for up to 14 days as opposed to the current 7 days. This will remove the need for people who self-isolate for more than 7 days and up to 14 days to get a sick note from their GP. I expect to sign this tomorrow and it will be effective immediately. We are also considering alternatives to the doctor's sick note where a person continues to be incapable of work on account of the coronavirus for more than 14 days. In addition, I have directed that the introduction of new minimum work requirements for the employed person's allowance, which were due to have effect from the 2nd of June this year, is to be postponed until April next year. Given the current situation with regards to COVID-19, the availability of new jobs or additional work hours is likely to be impacted for a considerable period of time. There is also risk to the availability of employment advisors to support people to secure additional work, and this move makes sense. Lone parents claiming income support solely on account of being a lone parent will be able to do so until their youngest child reaches the age of 12. Until recently, this was due to reduce to the age of 6 from the 2nd of April 2020. This postponement will apply for 26 weeks. In addition, persons claiming job seekers allowance will not be required to attend in person at Social Security office to claim their benefits. Instead, applications can be submitted by post. New claimants should contact the job seekers allowance team to ask for a claim form to be sent to them. Finally, persons claiming job seekers allowance will be temporarily excused from the requirements to sign on in person at a Social Security office, usually once a fortnight. They will continue to be paid their job seekers allowance, but they must contact the job seekers allowance team straight away if their circumstances change, they do any work, or they wish to end their claim. I should also point out that workers who are not incapacitated for work and are not self-isolating but are prevented from attending work for other reasons and as a result have no earning will be able to claim job seekers allowance. As for short-term incapacity benefit, we also plan to temporarily remove the 3-day waiting period for job seekers allowance. Persons who are concerned about their ability to collect their pension or benefits at the post office can nominate someone else to do it on their behalf, or they can opt to have them paid directly into their bank account instead. Anybody wishing to make changes to the way they collect their benefits or is in any way concerned about this should contact the Social Security Division directly. Social Security officers are actively exploring options for accepting benefit claims via other means than submission on paper-based forms, along with other measures that may become necessary to ensure that people can get the help they need in an appropriate manner. As I have said, Mr. President, the banking industry is not only offering support to businesses, but to individuals as well with offers of mortgage and loan repayment holidays in certain circumstances. Once again, if individuals have financial concerns, I also recommend that they contact their bank as soon as possible, and I want to thank at this point the banks, their executive teams and their staff for their offers of support that have been made public and for the work that they too are about to embark on. Finally, Mr. President, I am asking Tynwald to approve the transfer of £40 million from the operating balance to the contingency fund. I want to be clear to Tynwald. It is my intention, supported by the Council of Ministers, to use powers exercised under the Financial Provisions and Currency Act to undertake such actions as deemed necessary for the protection of the health and the economy of this island. These initiatives are our Phase 1 approach, but I must be clear and honest with you all. These measures may not be enough. £40 million may not be enough. We may need more, and much work continues on further support mechanisms, both for business and individuals. I said we will not wait and we will act decisively. We will seek the recall of Tynwald if we need additional measures that require by law Tynwald's authorisation. And in any case, I will make a further public announcement regarding a second phase of improved financial measures on Tuesday, the 24th of March. These are unprecedented times and they call for unprecedented action. We need self-discipline and social discipline to tackle the direct threat to our health, and we need similar qualities to meet the fiscal and economic threat to our island. So, Mr. President, I urge those companies and businesses who may come under threat, who may find themselves facing difficult decisions, to think outside the box. Are staff willing to take a pay cut to save jobs? Are any staff willing to take a 3-month sabbatical? Can you offer your services or that of your company in a different way? If a restaurant, can I offer a takeaway service? If a hotel, can I offer businesses hotel rooms for vital staff? Can I set up an emergency working facility for staff in quarantine? If I'm a taxi driver, can I set up a home delivery service? Never before will businesses, leaders, entrepreneurs and workers ever have had to think so quickly to find solutions. We will act across government, but do not wait. If you have ideas, then get them out there. If you have problems, tell us. If you need help, speak to your bank, speak to your advisors, and speak to us. And now more than ever, I call on the community of this island to spend local and think local. Spread your money around. Go somewhere new. Use the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Buy local meat and local produce. Buy local bread, creamery butter. Expand your horizons. Buy local fish. Cook some kippers. Stop at the farm shop you've never been to. Think local and act local. And if you can cope, if you have the financial resources, if you and your businesses and your family have financial security, please, I urge you, give us the space and time that we need to deal with those most in need in the coming days and weeks. For all of us, everybody across this island nation, we must do as much as we can to keep people employed and businesses intact. For the next 12 weeks, we must strain every sinew, consider every option, and do our best to keep our economy alive. If we succeed, this island will not only survive, the economy will have the opportunity again to thrive. I know and trust that all of us across government, business and the community will draw on our full range of capabilities as this proud island nation rises today to do what is right to overcome this deeply challenging crisis. I ask Tynwald to support the measures before it today and support the actions of this government.
Hear, hear. Hear.
Well done, Al.
Honourable Member for Onken, Mr Callister.
Yeah, thank you, Mr President. I thank the Treasury Minister for a very robust and positive statement this morning. As he outlined there, a number of banks are already offering help by way of mortgage holidays, which will absolutely help a lot of families in the coming weeks and months with any financial difficulties they may face. Can I ask the Treasury Minister, therefore, to work with the DOI Minister and local authorities to also provide payment holidays for housing tenants to find themselves in a difficult situation in the coming weeks and months?
Reply, sir.
Mr. President, we will work across government to protect our people as much as we can, and we will certainly be working across government departments to make sure the policies are in place to do just that. I take the members' comments on board, and we will enact that as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Honourable Member for Douglas East, Mr Robert Shaw.
Thank you, Mr President. And can I thank the Treasury Minister for that very robust and encouraging statement at such a difficult time. However, Mr President, I'm having difficulty remembering everything that all the ministers have said this morning, and would they all please be kind enough as soon as possible to circulate these statements to members, as obviously as MHKs we're going to be asked a whole range of questions from our constituents. It would be very helpful if we could have that information in front of us. Thank you, Mr President.
Minister.
Absolutely, Mr. President. I appreciate there is a huge amount of information, not only for this Honourable House, but for the whole community to take in, and now for businesses to take in. We will try to seek to communicate everything as effectively as possible, and I'm sure on behalf of the Chief Minister and the Health Minister, we will have those statements circulated as soon as possible, at lunchtime at the latest.
Honourable Member for Onken, Miss Edge.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I too thank the Treasury Minister for some of his actions here today. I'm just wondering, with regards to the list that he provided, really, of the companies that will be able to access the £3,000 grant. Tourism, leisure, I'm not sure he specifically said hospitality, but without that statement, I'm not too sure whether he could clarify that, because obviously people are closing there. Taxi businesses, are they classed as leisure? Where do they fit in? And also, I do have concerns for our construction industry, because if people are self-isolating, there's an awful lot of people having properties done up. Some of our construction workers work in our hospitals on a regular basis. And, you know, I think it perhaps is too soon to look at that, but I think it should be getting looked at. A number of the workers on the promenade are travelling backwards and forwards off the island. You know, I just wonder whether the Minister can confirm that Coman have taken this into consideration. And also, with regards to the circulation of information, can the Minister confirm it will be done to individual companies, not through the Chamber of Commerce or construction forums? Thank you, Mr President.
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I said in my statement, the full details of the sectors that I have mentioned will be provided in a list that will be published in the next few days and laid before Tynwald in the coming weeks. This list will be kept under constant review, and we will keep it under constant review and seek to broaden its scope as is required. In terms of ongoing impacts, as I have made clear in my statement, Mr. President, I will give a next update on financial measures and further assessment of potential implications publicly on Tuesday, the 24th of March 2020, and I am positive, Mr. President, that in conjunction with the Department for Enterprise, we will be circulating to all businesses a constant stream of communication of their entitlement and the measures that we have introduced and will in the future introduce to help keep them safe as much as possible.
Honourable Member for Council, Mrs Paul Moulton.
Thank you, Mr President, and thank you to the Treasury Minister for his statement. Just a point of clarification. I believe he referred to job seekers' allowance being made available to those who cannot attend work, but not because of needing to self-isolate for themselves or because of their own ill health. And I wondered, could he just confirm, does that mean he envisages that someone who has to take time away from work to care for another person who is either self-isolating or is ill, are they covered by what he referred to in terms of being able to claim job seekers' allowance? Thank you, Mr President.
Minister to reply.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I confirm with all these measures, full details will be provided in a written statement that will be circulated so that everybody is absolutely clear on such implications. And I expect the honourable member's question will be properly defined in that statement.
Honourable Member for Russian, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I appreciate that the Treasury Minister's objective throughout all this is business and individual financial survival. What I suppose want to know is how he's going to measure the effectiveness and efficacy of that support. How will he know if he's succeeding in his goal in terms of keeping businesses and people afloat? What data is he collecting at this time? And perhaps more importantly, what information does he suggest that companies should be collating in anticipation of support further down the line from a grant and support scheme?
Minister to reply.
Mr. President, we are collating information on an ongoing basis, on a daily basis. We are fully aware of the immediate challenge that is faced within our community, and we are aware of the fears of business and the fears of individuals on an ongoing basis. Our objective will be to keep as much as possible people in work and our businesses intact over the 3-month period that I have outlined and possibly beyond. That is our objective. That will be our ultimate measure, and that's what we're setting out to do today, and we will not stop and we will strain every sinew to try and achieve that objective. Data analysis, all the rest of that can come later. We must focus first and foremost on getting cash to businesses that need it as quickly as possible and helping protect those who, for whatever reason, find themselves needing additional financial support.
Honourable Member for Ramsey, Mr. Hooper.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to thank the Treasury Minister for his very clear delivery there of support for businesses and for individuals. I really welcome the deferral of the changes to income support. I would like to ask for some clarity. There are currently groups of people, lone parents specifically, who can only collect in person. If for whatever reason they don't have a proxy, what measures are being put in place? Can you reassure this Honourable Court that there will be some support available for those who can't, for whatever reason, have a proxy, but also are required to collect those benefits in person? And secondly, in respect of businesses, he's mentioned cash. Cash is obviously king when it comes to supporting businesses. And I really welcome the National Insurance holiday, but VAT and ITIP also have significant cash impacts on businesses, especially retailers and tourist businesses. And I'd like some, just if the Treasury Minister has considered sort of payment deferrals, payment holidays in respect of VAT and tax as well.
Minister to reply.
Mr. President, thank the Honourable Member for his question. I'm sure that all Honourable Members will appreciate there is a huge range of scenarios and situations that we may have to tackle in the coming days that may not nicely fit within a square box of the purpose of these intended measures, and that we may have to find ways to deal with it. When he talks about that particular particular issue with lone parents and or any of these other difficult situations that may occur on a case-by-case basis or in bulk, then we will tackle it, we will address the issue, and we will act as quickly as possible. In terms of tax, national insurance holidays, how we progress, I think I want to give everybody the absolute reassurance and commitment that across government, but particularly within the tax department of this Treasury division, we will treat businesses sympathetically from day one. And secondly, Mr. President, as the Honourable Member knows, we are going to work extremely closely with the Department for Enterprise in the coming days to understand where continued or further pressure points are coming within our economy, and I will make my next statement on Tuesday, the 24th of March, so that we are all crystal clear how we are intending to deal with further items as they arrive and what further measures may be needed for these particular sectors which are clearly being impacted with immediate effect as a result of the measures that we as a government have brought in to protect this island and protect its people.
Honourable Member for Ayr and Michael, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, of course, welcome the package of measures that the Treasury Minister has announced. And I'm sure the Treasury Minister would agree with me that the risk here is that we've got a short-term scenario which has the potential to significantly damage what are good, viable businesses. The measures that government is stepping forward with are very welcome, as is the support of the banks. However, I think we need to go a little bit further where necessary, and I'd just like the Treasury Minister to really consider the need for potentially the ability to engage at a very senior level across government with the Department for Enterprise and potentially professional advisors from the business community, where we are at risk of losing key strategic businesses, and that I would ask the Treasury Minister to consider providing a very focused quality support package of advice and potentially creative solutions around restructuring or any of those concepts which might be necessary where the measures that have been announced are helpful but don't go far enough, because we will come through this and we have to make sure that what we've got remaining is the strongest economic infrastructure possibly can have. And I think we do need that that creative thinking around some of the challenges some of these businesses will face, particularly with the recognition that with integrated supply chains, one business's issue can quickly become magnified down that supply chain and that profit chain. So I'd just ask the Treasury Minister to work with the Minister for Enterprise and perhaps the agency model and the professional service firms to make sure we've got the resources mobilised for those very, very specific situations that may be necessary.
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the hard work of the Minister for Enterprise and his team that they are applying to this situation and the contacts that they are establishing within the business community. I can tell the Honourable Member that both the Treasury and the Department for Enterprise will tomorrow be attending a full forum meeting with businesses directly impacted as a result of these announcements, and will do so in conjunction with the visit agency. I can also inform the Honourable Member that I, together with the Minister for Enterprise, are setting up an Economic Response Committee. That committee is an advisory committee. As and when we see fit, we will use that committee, if we need, to liaise with senior executives across the business community. But I think you can take it as read that from here on in, both the Treasury and the Department for Enterprise will be working closely with all our senior business leaders, both from large and small businesses, to try and overcome the problems and challenges that we are facing, and we will make every single effort to do so, to keep this economy alive and keep our businesses intact.
Honourable Member for Onken, Mr Callister.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was wondering if I can ask the Treasury Minister to give a definition of NI holiday. Does that mean that the payment has to be made at a later date or not paid at all?
Minister.
It means the payment is not being made at all.
Thank you. Honourable Member Mr Morehouse.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to congratulate the Minister on his upbeat nature in terms of his response, his emphasis on buying local. Would the Minister encourage the collection of data on off-island plans for key workers such as nurses and teachers over the next 3 months? These off-island visits could result in the closure of key services. Incentives might be possible in terms of preventing this from happening.
Minister to reply.
As I said, Mr. President, if we become aware of issues in any area, we will work carefully but quickly to consider how best to overcome any issues that arise. I appreciate the Chief Minister gave a very clear guideline this morning that we will be making exemptions in some case for critical workers, and the framework for that will be announced in due course.
Honourable Member Miss Edge.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like really to ask the Treasury Minister with regards to the cash payments. I know we keep saying there's proxies and people can use bank accounts. However, people do need access to cash in these circumstances with regards to lone parents, etc. I'm just wondering, is Treasury focused on finding a solution to deliver cash to some of these individuals? And just with regards to employees of Isle of Man Government. They are all employees of Isle of Man Government. Will employees, and has the Treasury Minister and the Chief Minister considered that employees can work in any place that's seen fit during this crisis?
Minister to reply.
I'll just deal with the latter part of that question. Mr. President, we will look to overcome any problems that we need. If we need to move employees to a different location to solve any problems, operational issues or health issues, then we will do so. In terms of cash payments, I recognise, Mr. President, that there may be an occasional situation where an individual needs to get cash because they are either self-isolating or their family are self-isolating, and in those particular situations where there is a difficulty on an individual basis, then I would urge those people to contact Social Security and we will find a way to resolve their problems. If this becomes, or any issue becomes, a sustained issue more broadly across the community, we will put in place the policies for the duration of this crisis to help our people on this island in whatever way and means are necessary to help them get through the challenge that they are facing.
This is a final question to the Treasury Minister. Honourable Member Mrs Barber.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'd like to echo the thanks of others to the Treasury Minister for a very robust set of measures that have been put in. I appreciate these are just a starting point. I wonder if I could just ask a question around EPA. I appreciate this measure has been put in place to make amendments to that. One of the things that's been raised with me is around use of unregistered childcare if there is a need for a nursery to shut at short notice because of an outbreak potentially. Will that now be covered if someone needs to make payment to an unregistered childminder, which at present is not included in the regulations? The other question is just a recognition of those businesses, specifically in the hospitality sector, which I know that you're very aware of, and I'm glad you're committing to meet with them tomorrow, who've been hit not by one exceptional event, but by, in fact, 3 exceptional events, both with the promenade closures, with the Flybe closure, and now with the coronavirus, and those businesses being very much at immediate risk because their reserves are already gone in many cases. So thank you for your commitment, but those are my questions.
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I've made it clear that we are reacting immediately to those businesses who clearly are suffering substantial economic challenges as a result of the measures that have been brought in. In terms of EPA childcare, I'm sure, as I said to the Honourable Member for Ramsey, Mr Hooper, there are a huge range of potential situations and scenarios that may arise as a result of the new situation, the health crisis and the potential growing economic issues and challenges that we are facing. We will deal with those on their merits. But, Mr. President, I have to be clear. I do not know whether we can deal with each situation as it arises. We have to ask the community to use common sense to get as much help for the community infrastructure that is around and available to everybody, whether it is through local commissioners, local support groups, local charities. If there are circumstances in which we are not able to act for whatever reason, then I ask people to use as many facilities, and I ask the community to work together as much as possible to help individuals or families who may need short-term assistance, particularly if we need to work out a scheme or other measures that may be necessary to bring in to force to deal with the particular issue if we believe it has merit.